Welcome to Liturgical Shenanigans, a Wayfolk Arts podcast, with your hosts, Hannah,
Phil,
Jackson,
and Maddie.
Hello, good friends, and welcome to Liturgical Shenanigans.
Hello, hello.
We are back. We are so excited to be back. And
we are so grateful that to us, your ears, you have lent.
Ooh, early segue.
Thanks.
Yes.
Thanks.
Yes, we've returned after a significant hiatus over the last month-ish, and are excited to be jumping back into the kind of second half of season 2 of the podcast. Mm-hmm. And we're jumping into a liturgical season, a pretty significant one coming up here in the coming days. We're publishing this on Monday. Mm-hmm. Oh, no, not on Monday. This comes out on Wednesdays.
Which is Ash Wednesday.
Which is actually Ash Wednesday.
The beginning of the liturgical season.
Literally the beginning of Lent.
It is.
Amazing.
It's very
Happy
early
Lent.
this year.
Happy Lent?
Snuck up on us.
It's Lent.
Happy.
Valentine's Day.
Blessed Lent.
Yes, all those things.
Which is fun with Lent.
It's a feast day and a fast day.
So it's a... I don't know how to merge those words.
Yeah, they're too similar.
Faced.
Fiast. We were talking a little bit about how, or I was actually to the void talking about how it's kind of fun that like a lot of people, the stereotype is to give up chocolate for Lent, and it's Valentine's Day.
It is.
And
It
so
is
like
an odd one, yeah.
very likely day one fails happening
Just
all over
right
the
away.
place.
Yep.
Because do you like your someone gives you this chocolate and you're like, I will wait till
Until
Jesus comes back.
yes. Yep. Or if you're a person who fasts most of the time but then feasts on Sundays, you could do the chocolate on Sundays.
There you go. Feast days.
Romancy Sundays on the feast days.
Yeah. If you're wondering at this point in the show why you haven't heard from Maddie yet, it's because we're temporarily fasting from Maddie.
Oh, no.
No, Maddie just is going about her business this week, and the schedules didn't quite align. So no fear, we will not be missing her for the whole season. She'll be joining us again next week. But just this week, we are Maddie-less. So stay tuned for more Maddie soon.
Just want to be clear that I would never miss a recording. You can hold me to that. I may not be able to make it next time.
Just to be clear.
Yeah. So what are we doing, friends?
So today, since we're starting a new liturgical season, we would like to have a little bit of conversation around Lent and around fasting. And so often to start our podcast episodes, we read you a thing. We are indeed going to read you a thing today, but instead of it being something that we wrote, we would like to read you the words of Isaiah 58, a lovely and difficult passage about fasting, to help us have a conversation around reframing fasting a little bit, maybe for Lent, social justice things. It'll be a good time. We are excited. Anything else folks should know before we prepare ourselves to hear the scripture passage?
I don't think so. I mean, do we want to give any sort of contexty stuff, or that just might be part of our conversation as we unpack it?
Yeah. I'm pretty. I think just started jumping into it.
Sounds great.
See where the conversation flows to.
Let's
next.
do it then.
Perfect. Okay. As you're preparing to listen to these words, take a moment to feel your body wherever you are, to feel air moving in and out of your lungs, to feel your heart beating in your chest. Take a moment to slow and hear these words from the book that we love, from Isaiah chapter 58, from the NRSV.
Shout out. Do not hold back. Lift up your voice like a trumpet. Announce to my people their rebellion, to the house of Jacob their sins. Yet day after day they seek me and delight to know my ways, as if they were a nation that practiced righteousness and did not forsake the ordinance of their God. They ask of me righteous judgments. They want God on their side. Why do we fast, but you do not see? Why humble ourselves, but you do not notice? Look, you serve your own interest on your fast day and oppress all your workers. You fast only to quarrel and to fight and to strike with a wicked fist? Such fasting as you do today will not make your voice heard on high? Is such the fast that I choose? A day to humble oneself? Is it to bow down the head like a bulrush and to lie in sackcloth and ashes? Will you call this a fast? A day acceptable to the Lord?
Is not this the fast that I choose? To loose the bonds of injustice, to undo the straps of the yoke, to let the oppressed go free, and to break every yoke? Is it not to share your bread with the hungry and bring the homeless poor into your house? When you see the naked, to cover them, and not to hide yourself from your own kin? Then your light shall break forth like the dawn, and your healing shall spring up quickly. Your vindicator shall go before you. The glory of the Lord shall be your rear guard. Then you shall call, and the Lord will answer. You shall cry for help, and he will say, Here I am.
If you remove the yoke from among you, the pointing of the finger, the speaking of evil, if you offer your food to the hungry and satisfy the needs of the afflicted, then your light shall rise in the darkness, and your gloom be like the noonday. The Lord will guide you continually and satisfy your needs in parched places, and make your bones strong. And you shall be like a watered garden, like a spring of water whose waters never fail. Your ancient ruins shall be rebuilt. You shall raise up the foundations of many generations. You shall be called the repairer of the breach, the restorer of streets to live in.
If you refrain from trampling the Sabbath, from pursuing your own interests on my holy day, if you call the Sabbath a delight and the holy day of the Lord honorable, if you honor it, not going your own ways, serving your own interests, or pursuing your own affairs, then you shall take delight in the Lord. And I will make you ride upon the heights of the earth. I will feed you with the heritage of your ancestor Jacob, for the mouth of the Lord has spoken. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God.
That's a favorite of mine.
Yep, same. One of my very first sermons was this passage.
Oh,
Oh,
wow.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Jackson's ordination text, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep, this is my ordination text. It was the text of my cohort group. The kind of first focus of our cohort was this chapter for a whole semester, and then it was our classes chosen verse for graduation. So
Oh, that's cool.
spent a lot of time in this chapter.
Yeah. So many mic drops.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and some of the reading of it too, there's so much character in this one that it was fun to hear some of what you brought into that, Phil, and the turns in it, the kind of 180s in the passage of if you do though, however, this is what it could be.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's so much the why
Yeah.
you know, and I can't help but feel the frustration in here of being treated like a vending machine.
Yeah.
You know, like, yeah. Okay. I know I gave you these feast days and I gave you these directions and these ways that you could, it's like if you told someone, I don't know, your love languages or something like that. And then they like technically checked the list and said, okay, now I need you to whatever. And it'd be like,
Yeah.
yeah, it just feels so tired.
Yeah.
Which is like an interesting framework to go into considering a fasting season with. The thought that like because at least for me, when I start to prep a fasting season of some sort, I get like almost pre-tired.
Yeah.
or like pre worried about my ability to last through that season. And it's just interesting to think of, especially without the engagement with the true underpinnings of the reasons for the fast, that God is tired of it too. Like
Oh my
tired
gosh,
of the
yeah.
posturing
Yeah.
that isn't grounded in any meaningful change.
Oh, that's so good. Yeah, it made me think of a couple things right there. Well, first of all, and I still want to hear this. Like, you said the words "when I prep a fasting season," which, I mean, that sounds really good. And I'm like, I don't think I've ever prepped a fasting season. I mean, I've thought about like, what do I want to do? Is there a thing I want to do meaningfully, and then maybe lean into it? But that sounds like more work than I think about. And also, the way you just described it felt so like Princess Jasmine to me. You know, like when like Aladdin shows up and she's so tired of the suitors.
Oh,
with
yeah,
their
yeah,
like
yeah.
heart underpants, and it's just like, because this is what we do. We come in and you're going to win the prize or whatever. And God just wants a magic carpet ride and the truth.
Right.
I don't know the magic carpet ride.
Also, the truth is long time coming.
It is. The metaphor falls away, but like we can see Jasmine's frustration.
Yeah, I got you.
Yep. Oh, good.
All right.
Goodness. Yes. Oh man.
It's all the Disney Pixar references this week from in my brain with scripture. Context: I preached a sermon this week, and it was about a bug's life.
Yes.
That's the whole context I'm giving.
So good. I just think so much of the heart of this text is like thinking about fasting from how you're also impacting other people in the way that you're living. That's just not how I think about fasting. How so often when I, as Jackson said, prepare to fast for Lent or something like that, I'm so often focused on how it's going to impact me as an individual. But I don't think about like what does this do for my community? If I'm a person of privilege, what does this do for the people around me who don't have the same privilege? And like this feels like a very, I don't know, like a convicting challenge, but also like a challenge to think creatively about fasting and think about fasting for the sake of the community.
Yeah.
Which is just so new for my brain.
Well, it's interesting because, I mean, there's probably alternatives to this, but as I was thinking about, well, where do we see fasting in Scripture? A lot of it is relational, community, oriented, like in Jonah when the cows fast, like
Sure,
but that's like we're all doing this because we're all in this, right? We need to do this or the city's doomed, which is maybe a personal interest, but also it's collective.
Right.
But even like when there's those folks that the demons that couldn't be cast out, and Jesus is like, this only happens when you've done your work, when prayer and fasting, and there's we do this so that, and that's interesting because I think the way I've always heard that taught is, oh, you're not holy enough yet, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But in the context of this passage, it's like there are some demons that like there's some cost to how we live, to how we pray, to how we live our faith before these brokennesses can be undone. Yeah, that feels weighty to me.
I'm put in mind of like some, many fasts are the chocolate ones, right? Or at least the public or the first ones that rise to the top of the pool are the ones that are like, oh yeah, sure, giving up chocolate for Lent, giving up meat for Lent, giving up sitting down for Lent.
Alcohol, smoking, vices? Giving up vices in general.
Giving up vices.
And this idea that this is a chance, it's kind of like a New Year's resolution, but it's like a chance to reset to live my life better.
Right.
A lot of people see it.
And so in like one tiny part of the fast, that there is that sense of like, well, maybe through like trying to live my life better, I will be able to be more awake. Great.
Awake.
If that works, great. Then there's fasts, quote unquote, of like moving towards something. So I'm going to go on a walk every day. I'm going to eat vegetables every day. I'm going to these sorts of things where you're picking up a practice. This one in this category of things, I feel like there's a little bit more of an opportunity for engaging some of that justice work of like, I'm going to engage this resource every week. I'm going to watch these films. I'm going to listen to this music, and I'm going to expose myself to more voices and try to figure out ways for me to connect into community as well. I think that then there's a third one, which is kind of the one that you're talking about, Hannah, which is this like specifically, how do I fast for the sake of the community? And that puts me in mind of like creation care based fasts of like, I'm going to minimize my waste to the point that, like, I get one trash bag through all of Lent would be an interesting fast. Or not eating meat would be in another similar category. If I'm going to intentionally reduce my carbon footprint by not eating meat through the entirety of Lent. There are people who do that all the time.
And there are plenty of ways to not eat meat that is not environmentally helpful at all, right? Like
Yeah, if you counteract it by getting a bunch of single-use drinks from Starbucks, that's not, it's not going.
Well,
to
and
help.
even and I think this is a big. I play in this. I get sucked into these conversations a little bit, not as a vegan, but as a vegetarian, right? People are like, "Well, here's why your thing doesn't help anything." It's like, thank you, but especially a lot of the products that allow someone to be vegan have a chemical factory, whatever cost, not the same as like necessarily cows, but like. Yeah, and it's true. My point was, like, I think you could do it as a valorizing thing like this is saying not to do, and you can do it as an intentionally beautiful thing like you're saying.
Yeah.
I also think about, that brings to mind the sort of, I don't know what they're called. I'm going to call them consumer strikes that have been happening a lot on social media. Like, we know that this company has been oppressing its workers, or this company has been contributing to the destruction of this particular community, and I don't want to be support this community or this company if they're going to be producing this way. So I'm going to fast from my using of their goods or buying of their goods or things like that.
Which feels very tied to this passage. And it's funny how we can get very, I don't know, still rulesy about it or something. Because someone I love just recently at a place I bring food to, I brought food from a particular pizza chain that apparently there's a boycott going on out of political reasons.
Boycott, that's the word I could.
I really liked yours better. Consumer strike is really good. I will not consume. That feels very. Boycott feels very like, I don't know, snooty to me. I shall not consume this feels very fasty. I liked yours better. But the word this person uses boycott, and it was a boycott doesn't count if someone else provides the food, so it's okay. Which also True, right? Like that feels good to me too. Of the if someone lays food before me, I may still participate in that community, and there's these nuances to the ways that we fast. But
Yeah.
anyway, that was just
Interesting. Yeah.
that was funny to me as you brought that up, like the political boycott and the ways that we still go like, well, yeah, well, and this is a thing that's big in my fam, because so Sonnet, my partner, used to work with Hope Project, Muskegon, Michigan-based nonprofit that works with survivors of sex trafficking and gets the word out there about awareness for the things that contribute to it or exploit folks, that sort of thing. And there was a period where it was like we started to really pay attention to the companies that exploited people in those ways. All right, so how do we limit our consumption of these things? It's like, oh, I guess we can never go to Walmart, right? And then you're like, oh no, I can't have an iPhone,
Yeah.
right? And it's like there's just not a way to have this thing that's in front of me that I just read scripture from that doesn't involve me consuming from the impressed, which is what this passage is saying, right? You humble yourselves, but you do not notice. You fast, but you do not see. You serve your own interest. You oppress all your workers. And I go like, boo. Yep. And I think we can get very perfectionistic about that. Maybe we could try to. I don't know.
Yeah, that feels like, as someone who, at least as a young person, was very all or nothing, I feel like once you kind of get into like this righteous buying, that can also become sort of like I'm doing this because everything is awful and I am going to do the right thing. And it becomes sort of a posturing itself, even though like you are trying to do the right thing and support your community well. But so it either becomes posturing, or you can do the all or nothing the other way and get so legalistic about it that like you kind of spiral and go, well, I can't buy anything from anywhere anymore. And then kind of just get like overwhelmed with the guilt of all of that. I often have in the past gotten that way about my use of single-use plastics, or just plastic in general, that like I have finally gotten to the point where I'm like, you know what, one more step is enough for now. Hopefully in the future I will have taken more steps, but this is going to be enough for now. This is still a step, and a step for now is enough.
Well, and I'm with you completely. And I think the trap that's so easy to fall into is the individualism of it.
Yeah.
Like it feels a bit like, well, I'm not racist. Like I don't whatever. And the thing is, we are all, it's that privilege thing, right? We're all benefiting from a system that is easy. We're all benefiting from the iPhone system. We're all benefiting from the way that plastics are used. And unless there's a massive cultural effort or movement, like the prophet wants to sound trumpets about, that feels more important to me. And I think we can get in very like, how do I separate myself from the sinfulness, and then I'm good, even as the world continues to go to shit. But this is a different kind of invitation, I think, than that.
Yeah, there's definitely something communal, not just fasting for the sake of the community, but it's calling the community to fast.
Yeah.
Which like even your pizza story made me think about that. I do agree. Like I'm not in this moment speaking against the hospitality of like, yes, I'll eat whatever is placed before me. I love that vision, etc. And there's also an interesting conversation around how hard it is, how much fatigue, how much opportunity for hypocrisy, how much all the things get thrown in when you're forced to fast alone. Yeah. And the in a way that I'm not sure it was always intended for it to be, because a lot of this sort of, or advocating for, like for instance, the end of this passage where it talks about if you keep the Sabbath, Keep the Sabbath is the wrong phrase. It's if you refrain from trampling the Sabbath, and keep it the kind of underpinnings is keep it in the way that it ought to be kept, honor it. That's a communal thing. Sabbath doesn't work all alone. It's a whole community working for justice, so that rest is possible.
Yeah.
And so there is this other side of fasting, which is like, find your crew, find your crew that can do this with you, because alone is really hard. A, and B, it's harder to hit the heart of it. It's harder to hit sort of meaningful change in the community as well, because flip side of that hospitality moment, a prophetic moment is like, no, I'm not going to eat the food you're offering. But
use it as a chance to educate the person who's offering you
right.
the food.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But
Sure.
but also
Also can get
hopefully it's the community at large in that sort of scenario saying all together, no, we are not going to shop at Walmart for this season. There's some Walmarts that work really hard at being integrated in their community, but etc. How do you find ways to make your fast about the community behaving in a manner together that reflects the values underpinning it?
Yep. And then there's that prophetic moment you're talking about. So my brain went to actually when I brought it up a minute ago, it brought the word boycott. We were talking about that. I don't even know if he's still, I don't know, but there's a guy who did folk songs and they were really, really funny. Wally Pleasant.
I don't know.
I know that name.
Michigan based.
Do not.
Go treat yourself. It's probably on the internet somewhere, but he definitely has, I think it's called The Hippie's Lament. And it's a song about boycotting, and but it definitely has that that energy that is very relatable about the like when someone's like, yeah, I don't do this or this, and you're like, I can't.
Congratulations.
Or like, how do I'm just trying to order food for our meeting, like, and everybody's boycotted every restaurant in town here for some reason, and like, I don't know. And I'm not saying they shouldn't be, or those reasons aren't valid, but that energy is there too. So how do you balance that invitation into caring without triggering what feels like a huge like half of our society is tired of? Like a lot of these Donald Trump rallies or whatever, I've said the name, but are people who are tired and frustrated of what they see as virtue signaling.
Yeah, the portion of this passage that is about the yoke starts, if you remove the yoke from among you, the pointing of the finger.
Yeah.
And the speaking of evil, the like, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
but rather feed the hungry.
Yeah.
Offer food, satisfy the needs of the afflicted, then your light shall shine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hold on. The thought has to come back. Oh no. I lost the piece that connects to it, so I can't find it again. Shoot. I will come back to it. It'll come back. Never mind. Keep going.
I'm at risk of singing a Wally Pleasant song. The best line is when he's like, I recycle, grass, cans, tinfoil, and other people's ideas. It's really funny.
Amazing. Okay.
I don't think that's right, but go listen to it.
I got it. Okay. So way back at the beginning of the conversation, Jackson mentioned that the scripture passage, like in the second half, gives you a vision of what it could look like. And it's like not just you're doing it wrong, here's the right way to do it, but if you do it, here's what will happen. Yeah. And I think that feels like perhaps a helpful and maybe necessary piece of this sort of communal fasting of like here's the injustice that we're trying to work to correct, but what does the other side look like? What are we longing for? What are we trying to move toward? We're moving away from something for a particular reason together as we fast. But like what's what's the next step after that? Why are we fasting? Not just so that, eventually the store doesn't exist anymore, but like, how do we continue to work for the fair treatment of these particular workers, or whatever it might be that we're trying to impact change in, that like your no can also be a yes to a new thing, or yes to a vision of what it might be like in the future.
Flourishing, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that's, I think, one of the really, there's a lot of lovely things about Lent and why it is when it is and how the church calendar works and calendrical rites.
Hey.
There it is.
But the ascent kind of toward, the Passion Week and the ultimate conflict of an oppressive, unjust, non-shalom, and its failure, right? And that love and peace and shalom wins on Easter, and we get to see that even if it feels like the world will always be stuck in this thing that we are trying to resist or invite ourselves to undo, or even like in this passage, it's not. It does say release the yoke and like year of jubilee it and fix everything. But if you think of it even as like, I just fast from it. just slow down your exploitation. Slow down, like take a rest from the ways you're harming the world and one another.
Yep.
And here's where things are going in that, what is it, the restorer of the breach, the repair of the breach, the unbreachers.
Repairer of the breach and restorer of streets to live in.
I love that so much.
Yeah, like that's the vision, right? Like the breach is repaired. The streets that we live in communally, like we all live on the street together, has been restored.
And I think the importance of that in this passage is that's where your eyes are. It's that post-Easter hope, and we're living in a mess,
Right.
and our eyes are there, and we're continuing to paint that picture and invite people into it, which is very unlike the pointing of the finger.
Yeah, it's the offering of a hand.
It's the hospitality gesture of, if you would go this way, please,
Yeah.
we will restore the streets. Restore the breach, repair the streets. We're going to repair and restore, and there will not be breaches, but there shall be streets.
Yep. So as my brain is like trying to shift into like the practical, and I'm trying to think about how in the past communal fasts have showed up. And I think about like, they don't quite get to what I think we're talking about in this conversation.
Right.
I think I remember that like church growing up, there's like invitation for everyone to choose something to fast from, which is like sort of a communal fasting, but it's not like a, what if we all did this together? It is Lent, so let's do a fast. Everybody go pick a thing and do it. But that's not like we're moving as a community toward this thing.
I do think about a cool thing that's happening at Hope Church, but at a lot of churches in the community too, are the overlap of Black History Month and, Lent. This year it starts on the 14th, so about half of February. But this invitation to wake up, or to make yourself vulnerable to hear things that may make you uncomfortable or may challenge worldview, which is what this passage does, right? Like, you think you're doing fine and look around you, It's neat that a lot of churches in particular, and communities, but are creating opportunities for conversations and speakers and movies and these sorts of things. That feels like a touch of it, like a bit of the corporate invitation into looking toward shalom, looking toward healing.
Yeah. It's almost like fasting from comfortability.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or blind comfortability, maybe.
Yep. Well, and that, right? It's that complicit, sort of violently enforced hierarchical status quo stuff, right? Like, as a person of privilege, it feels very comfortable and
Yeah.
like normal, but it isn't just what's the word I want? Inert. It's not inertia. It's not this way because it's this way. It is enforced,
Right.
and opening your eyes to see that is, I think, along this path. Yeah, and creating opportunities and invitation to do that corporately feels like maybe a role of the church, and very Lentish.
Yeah. Yeah.
The color purple, and never mind. Just
What?
there's no
What?
so purple, Advent,
Oh, there we go. Yeah, yeah.
right,
Lent.
and Lent. Yeah,
I think so.
and the movie The Color Purple,
Yeah.
which is recently big now again, and that's just interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I chuckled at that correlation.
I
and
love that.
it's not as fun to tell
Right.
Yes.
as it was.
To like
To be
happen
tickled
in
by
your
it.
brain. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So thanks everybody for
That's
joining me for that
delightful.
journey. Also, purple's my favorite color.
It's true. My brain had a thing to try to. We're close to our time, but I'm trying to remember my. I don't know why my brain isn't keeping its thoughts today. It was before purple. Oh no. Oh, it was invitation. Part of this, I think that when you get into like the legalistic side of fasting, that like communal fasting can become a very shame-filled practice if you do the sort of pointing the finger version of fasting of like, you're not doing it right, as opposed to this sort of invitational thing that we're talking about is we're going this way. We're stepping away from this and toward this, and we would love it if you came with us. Will you come with us? And you can still be the prophetic voice and say, this is why you should come with us. But also, there's something I feel like magical that happens when someone decides to take that step. When someone consents to joining the rest of the community in this act rather than is shamed into doing it or forced into doing it. That bond and the momentum forward, I think, is stronger and richer when there's an invitation and the invitation is accepted.
Well, and I love that. And it's really important, I think, because I think one of the main reasons we resist, maybe not, but I believe one of the main reasons we resist this is shame, right? Shame sucks and hurts and isn't fun. And I think it's difficult for people to contemplate lament outside of shame. And it's the same thing like, well, I'm not racist. I think it's that same impulse that wants to separate myself from the destructiveness and the evil, which is what shame is, right? I am bad. And we've been naming like we're complicit in all of these harmful systems. So that means I am bad. And I think the invitation is not to do that. It's actually to release that and say, wait a minute, what if I'm not bad? And what if we don't have to do this? And we have that Easter vision of like, it's gonna be this. This is what we can be. This is what we can do. Let's try to put some of this down and walk together and recognize this is not who we are. There's still lament. We still look and this is sad and hard and painful. But I think a lot of times in church we can turn that into I am bad and the worst and whatever, which we're still kind of navel gazing at that point.
Or I am not right, and the point of the fast is to be right, which is not really the point of it. Like the point of the like the if then of this passage is always this like, then your glory will shine. Like it's not like, and you will be in the right again, which is like, you know, oftentimes when like a community is enforcing it in general, when a community enforces a rule or a fast or something like that, you cross pretty close into cult pretty soon. But that invitation to kind of walk alongside and come and see what it will do.
Yeah.
Is a open relationship and an invitation.
Right. It's interesting, isn't it? The invitation, the fasting and Lent as an invitation toward freedom, as opposed to a command of restriction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. On that beautiful note, we have reached the end of our time for today. Jackson, where can they find us if they want to interact with us more?
Sure. So yeah, we've reached the end of the time for the podcast for today, but we're going to be reflecting on Lent throughout this season. We're going to be releasing resources and also just our normal run of liturgies and things like that, but all sort of reflecting on the season of Lent. We're going to be kind of cobbling it all together with some themes and things like that. So check us out on Instagram. That's one of the best ways to be engaging in our sort of regularly scheduled programming. In addition to the work of Liturgical Shenanigans, Wayfolk Arts is a group of writers and creators and all sorts of things. So we'll be posting on Instagram throughout this season and throughout the year. Yeah. You can find us at the Instagram handle at Wayfolk Arts.
And it's always more up to date because, like, you know, between when we talk here and when it hits your ears,
it's true.
Time has passed. But between when we create a thing on Instagram and post it, little time has passed.
Very little. Almost like seconds sometimes.
Hopefully.
So definitely check us out on Instagram. You can find us over there. You can find us on our website, wayfolkarts.com, but you can also find us over at patreon.com/wayfolkarts. And you can find a number of different tiers over there of patronship, which is a way to engage in the community in another way. Just the sort of patron-only posts and the involvement in the community over there, a number of different tiers of patronship, but at the very lowest level of patronship, you get access to the after show as well. So that's another additional conversation. So you get to hang out with us once a week if you are a patron of the show. So check us out over there. Those are all great ways to interact with us.
Glorious.
We're so grateful you were here for this Lent conversation, friends. Yeah. And we're excited for the continuing conversation.
Yeah, and another way to make have communal conversation, especially around this season of Lent, as you're considering fast, as you're considering what you're doing in this season, is to check us out over on Discord.
Sure.
We have a lot of different sort of sub-servers.
Yeah, we have a Discord. They're channels, and we can make a Lent one. I'd love to do that. Right now, we don't have a whole lot of folks being active over there, and we've been on break. So, but it'd be a great time if you're curious about that, can't figure out how to do it. If you join our Patreon, it pretty much automatically sets you up on that, so that's great. But even if you're not one of our patrons and you'd like to engage in that way, shoot us a message. You could do it on Instagram or any of the other places Jackson mentioned. Be a great way to engage. And honestly, it's this conversation. You know, we just had the three of us kicking around. What does it even mean to think of Lent in a corporate? And not like corporations, but like in a together sort of way, in the way that it maybe is more world impact. And I want to hear what people would do with that. So please share. Let's talk about it.
Thanks so much, friends. We'll see you in 2 weeks or 1 week if you come and be a patron.
Blessings, friends.
Bye.